right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. All right. All right, all right, all right. Well, good even fall to one and all. And this is the Warp Speed. Thank you very much for joining me today on this here live, where we will be discussing all things boxing. And of course, I really do appreciate every single one of you who has decided to join this here community to listen in to this man who has nothing but questions, it seems, and nary, if ever, an answer. And this is your interlocutor, Warp Speed, Lieutenant Commander's log 1001.8. Life is but a dream. Or, depending on who you ask, of course, it may just be a simulation. And some would just say that everything about life is exactly how it is, and it's all reality. There is no fabrication, there's absolutely nothing simulated or artificial about our experience. Who knows? I don't have the answers to life's questions. I have questions to life's questions. And of course, we will on occasions talk about those greater, more meaningful things. But in the meantime, we will just be discussing boxing. Yep, ladies and gentlemen, we are gonna be discussing my favorite human activity, which is organized violence, pugilism, in a squared ring. As ironic and as illogical as that sounds, contradictory in fact, a squared ring. Boxing is one of the best ways for humans to tell their story about their existence, their upbringing, about their dreams, their losses, their defeats, their triumphs. So, of course, we revere the sport of boxing highly, and we will now begin by mentioning some of the most modern news in the sport, things that I find quite curious. And my job really is to just report, not so much comment. We'll have a couple of listeners chime in, and we'll have a few commentators probably hop on this live and give us their opinion. Me, myself, I really don't trust my thought formation. So I just invite you to come in here into this here community, into this here broadcast and ask questions. And we may just walk this earth fools together. I wanted to begin by, of course, addressing the fact that one of the greatest baseball players of all time, Willie Mays, apparently he passed away a couple of days ago. And it is just now making the rounds for the most part. At least now is when the Major League Baseball has been able to commemorate that man's contributions to this beautiful American activity, this beautiful pastime of Americana, Major League Baseball. It was one of the greats. Yes, he was one of the first few black men that came from the Negro Leagues and made it in the Major League Baseball. And he played for my favorite team in baseball, which is San Francisco Giants. Played for the Mets, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, we just wanted to make sure that we can commemorate his contribution to the sport of baseball. I did not get to experience him play. He had stopped playing baseball around 73. I was born in 79 or so. So so I guess I'm one of those unlucky fellas that, like a majority of anybody born after that, that probably never seen him play, not even on video footage, because of course, life goes on, and we've had other great things happen in the sport. Nonetheless, we just wanted to recognize the man and his accomplishments and say that, of course, I do not question. If people say that he is one of the greatest of all time, then say the V. So be it. Willie Mays, may the baseball gods allow you safe passage through the beautiful cosmos of space. And of course, I know everybody wants to hear news about Ryan Garcia. Oh, Ryan Garcia got suspended for a year. Oh, Ryan Garcia has some kind of financial punishments that he has to pay for having cheated in his last fight against Devin Haney by taking some kind of performance enhancement product. Of course, woe is he, because Jake Paul or Logan Paul, or one of them, is suing him for, I guess, saying that they were pedos, which are PEDOPHILES. I won't say that full term because I might just get struck down. But apparently they seem to be those kind of guys that like to play around with little kids. That's what he accused one of the one of the Paul brothers of being. And he, of course, said bad things about their beverage by the name of Prime. So, of course, he's suing them. They're suing him right there. And, of course, Ryan Garcia, his mother's suffering from cancer. And, of course, Ryan Garcia said that Jordan Plant, Caleb Plant's wife, has given him, and it embarrassed me to say it, fellatio. Caleb Plant threw semi-full beer in this direction, and I'm sure that Caleb Plant would likely have knocked that boy out on personal matters if he wasn't surrounded by a cadre of big men and bodyguards. Nonetheless, Ryan Garcia has accepted his punishment. He accepts in this agreement that he had with the sanctioning bodies and the state commissions of boxing or whatnot to stay away from the sport for 1 year, to pay $1.5 million, I think, to his promoter, Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. And yeah, more things that, of course, make him look like he's content with that. And why wouldn't he be content with that, right? I mean, he just walked away with a pretty penny, about $40 million, just because he won a fight against Devin the Dream Haney. Good even fall to you, Mr. Vince Vargas. Crazy news already surrounding that fella. Yeah, it's been crazy since, I don't know, since I guess he started taking a puff of that marijuana, that verdant plant of spiritualism, that gateway to Wonderland. Yeah, it's ever since he started to smoke in Instagram Live. I guess from there he's gone downhill. Just became a DOUCHE bag. If you don't mind me saying that, Mr. Vargas, I don't like to say curse words, but I will spell them out on occasion. But yeah, he's been one of those guys that has been very offensive. The kind of person, in fact, that if anybody spoke to you, about your beloved in such a fashion, just in a mano, man to man kind of thing, that person might not make it out alive after you address those comments. Ryan Garcia has become persona non grata, except for his fans. And I understand why he's got fans, right? He's got a very exciting, unpredictable fighting style. You know, for the most part, we've said, myself and I'm sure homie Ricky have agreed, he is one of the most limited, most laxed, and undedicated, unprofessional fighters in boxing. He doesn't take himself seriously. He doesn't listen to his trainers. He's always on social media, trying to make himself Instagram famous, TikTok famous, everything except boxing, right? But then once you get him in the ring, whoa, Nelly, can that man punch? One of the fastest punchers in the sport. I think he beat a Dominican just about 3 fights ago, where the punch was so quick, people had to slow it down 4 times. A quarter of the speed of real time footage to capture just one little tap of the punch that he threw against what was his name? I know he's a Dominican fighter, but he knocked him out. He fell crazy, hit him, man, and he did the same thing to that Mexican undefeated fella, Oscar Oscar maybe Oscar Larios. I can't remember. They're good fighters, good fighters. But I'm just old and rusty brained, Mr. Vargas, so I don't remember very well. But he knocked him out after being outclassed for a few rounds and then starting to pick it up. All of a sudden, out of like reaction, he throws this punch that get out of here, hits the guy in the temple. The guy goes spaghetti legs. Then here comes Ryan Garcia for the kill. And look at what he did with one of the most skillful, highly accomplished young fighters in the sport of boxing, Devin the Dream Haney. What did he do? He almost took that man out in 1 round. We're not even my favorite fighter, Vasil Haitek Lomachenko, could do it in 12. My goodness, it's Ryan King Rye Garcia. Not good for the sport. But he is not a very likable fella nowadays, right? He was a person that most people cheered for, and now people are divided on him. I'm one of those that is divided on him, because I do believe there should be consequence for cheating. And it seems that he himself agrees to it also. Right now, he's really sending a lot of messages saying that he's in disagreement, that they've cheated, that the sport is corrupt, that they've robbed him of his win because, believe it or not, yes, they overturned the victory. Once he agreed that he should be suspended for having used some kind of performance enhancement drug, and maybe he didn't admit that part, but he admits that it was in the system. That's why he accepts the punishment. Once he accepts the punishment, right then there, he's okay with saying, I agree that overturning the outcome of the fight is fair and square. Now we know that does not change the fact that Devin the Dream Haney got clocked a few times by those crazy 1-2s and crazy hooks of Ryan Garcia. That does not change the fact. That does not change the fact that all of this is because of Devin the Dream Haney's desire to take on one of the softest touches that he could have at that moment for the most money. So much so that he gave up the weight stipulations of abiding by the 140 contract. He let that man blow the weight for a simple pittance of 1.5 million. His greed and his desire to maximize his remuneration allowed him to take on a cheater when he himself is such a steadfast, responsible individual that apparently wouldn't cheat himself. He somehow allowed the person that identifies as his antithesis, the complete opposite of who Devin the Dream Haney has been, he let that guy not only come in there and cheat, blow the weight, but pay a simple sum in order to take on that fighter for the most money. This is how arrogant and secure Devin Haney was, that he would just go over there and mollywop one of the most spectacular, surprising fighters in the sport of boxing currently, and Ryan Garcia. Now, a lot of people are really upset that Ryan Garcia, his win, has been overturned. And a lot of people are upset that he has been suspended for a year. But I tell you this, why are you guys upset if he himself agreed to those conditions? He agreed to those consequences. When these fighters agree that they deserve what happens to them, why do some of us go there and save them and try to spare them that punishment? Look, the same thing is going on with one of the fighters that fought last weekend, and he lost in one of the most surprising, not to me, but one of the most surprising underdog fights in recent history, which is Australia's Liam Paro taking on the killer, the 7-1 favorite fighter, and Subriel Matias, the Puerto Rican killer at junior welterweight. Subriel Matias lost. He admitted that he lost. He admitted that the man that came there to fight was better than him that night. And some people are saying it's a one-off. And worse, some people are now saying that Subriel Matias fought nobody, that it was always a punching bag. Where were these people at when everybody was betting in favor of Subriel Matias 7-1? Where were all these naysayers? Where were all the people that were saying he was a punching bag? I'll tell you where they were at. Here. Me. I was one of those that was telling homie Ricky, put your money on Liam Paro, because the odds are 7-1, and I guess nobody knows who Liam Paro is. Liam Paro is the guy who knocked out Montana Love in his last fight. That very feisty, very good fighter from the United States, he knocked him out. Prior to that, he had beaten another fighter by the name of Brock Jarvis, another undefeated up-and-comer from Australia. Two undefeated up-and-comers from the 140-pound division. They met, both of them very skillful, both of them with enough power to rock your head right off its block, right off his shoulders. They met together, and whoa, if I'm not mistaken, he almost took that guy out in the first round. I think he let him go on into the second round, but he stopped him. I may be wrong. He may have stopped him at the first round. But the way that he did it, and how he's been fighting since, even with the broken hand and a couple of injuries, yes, even being dropped a couple of times in his fights, if you've seen that guy fight, you would know that he had the kind of style for Subriel Matias. Subriel Matias shells up and walks forward, allows you to take him on, throw everything you got in hopes that he tires you out, and then he starts throwing in between with those powerful punches, uppercuts, and punches to your temple, and that would be enough. How do you neutralize punches to the temple? Well, make sure your head is not in the line. Take a step to the side. Just one step. No circling around. Just take one step. How do you take on a guy that's come forward and who's just shutting up with his dukes up? One twos, one twos, one twos. Throw right down the middle. Open up the guard. Paw at his hands. Get your jab. Put it on top of his glove. Push his arm down. Throw with your two. Open up avenues of attack. Throw uppercuts in between. Throw to the body. Jab to the body. Take one step to the side. Hit to the body. And that's William Parle there. Mr. Vince Vargas says, can't wait for the top ranked card tomorrow. Exactly. That's what we're addressing, Mr. Vince Vargas. In fact, let's just get down to it. Let's not talk about these guys that just lost and the way they, what their consequences should be. We'll talk about it later. But yes, let's talk about top ranked card tomorrow. As always, top ranked, their cards are chock full of great names, good matchups, some soft touches for their up and comers. One of my favorite up and comers, in fact, I believe he is my favorite up-and-comer, Steven Navarro from Los Angeles, Inglewood, if I'm not mistaken. He will be fighting tomorrow's card. Watch that guy right there. His very first fight was in Matchroom. He fought on the undercard of one of the bigger fights, but because he was an undercard fighter in the very first one, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people did not watch him just completely conquer his nemesis in 2 rounds. He is the Mexican Lomachenko. I have named him Lomachenko. Watch him tomorrow, everybody. Steven Navarro. Trust me, this guy is the goods. But the main event fighter is Rafael El Divino Espinosa taking on Sergio Chirino. Now, you're probably asking yourself, who really is Rafael El Divino Espinosa, the new champion at 126? We know 126 is packed with a bunch of incredible fighters, incredible matchups. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've come to the conclusion that El Divino Espinosa is the greatest underdog in the past 10 years, maybe 2 decades. And you're probably asking yourself, what are you talking about? Don't you remember Andy Ruiz Jr. knocking out and stopping Anthony Joshua? Wasn't that the biggest? Yeah, it was one of them, ladies and gentlemen. I won't deny that Andy Ruiz, when he upset one of the best heavyweight fighters in the current era, if not the best for a while, Anthony Joshua, I won't deny you that that was a spectacular, surprising moment for the sport of boxing. Completely rewrote the story of boxing. A chubby, Snickers bar eating poor man from down South California. He would come over here and take on the Black Adonis, a beautiful, muscular, dedicated, fit man in Anthony Joshua. He would welcome him to the great US of A in New York, of all places. And he would beat that man. And if I'm not mistaken, Anthony Joshua never fought in the US again. This is how devastating Andy Ruiz's victory was to Anthony Joshua's career. One of the greatest underdog stories in the past decade. But let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, let's just compare Rafael El Divino Espinosa to Andy Ruiz. What was Andy Ruiz doing right before he fought Anthony Joshua? Well, ladies and gentlemen, in fact, he had only lost one time to Joseph Parker in a fight that people really thought Andy Ruiz had won. I think that fight had taken place over there in Australia. in Joseph Parker's hometown. It was a heck of a fight, but I think, and maybe I'm mistaken, guys. Maybe you guys can do the box rec. Maybe I'm just talking out of my behind, completely mistaken. But I believe he lost that fight officially, but he won it on the eyes of the spectators. So we can assume that when we look at Andy Ruiz's record before and after, he was basically an undefeated fighter that had a couple of very good names before he fought Anthony Joshua, right? I mean, let's go for it. Okay. He had been an Alexander Dimitrenko, a Devin Vargas. He lost to Joseph Parker. Yep, I was right about that one. And otherwise, he was just a very spectacular, explosive man. And then afterwards, he went on to go hell in high water with Chris Arreola, skinny Arreola. And then he ended up putting up a hell of a war, but completely beating Luis Ortiz. That guy has, before and after that fight, added good names to his resume. But do you guys know who El Divino Espinosa fought in order to get a shot at the belt against one of the most noteworthy, outstanding Olympians in boxing's recent history, and Robesi Ramirez, the Cuban? Do you know exactly who he beat to get there? Hey, sure you probably don't. Why? Because El Divino Espinosa fought what you would call nobodies. Nobodies. A lot of the fighters that he's taken on had upside down records. So he was good enough to beat these guys, right? And keep himself undefeated for about 20 or so fights. So, of course, it looks good on Robesi Ramirez to take on a Mexican that has a bunch of good wins and he's undefeated. But for the most part, we can assume that when Ramirez's team decided to take that guy on, they were probably just trying to pad his record and look good against an incredible oddity of a man, right? I mean, 6 foot something Espinosa against, I don't know, 5'7" Robesi Ramirez. It was going to look good if he could beat him. And of course he was going to beat him because Robesi Ramirez had been a 2-time Olympian. And the other guy had been a nobody fighting nobodies with upside down records. But then, lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, El Divino Espinosa, he goes and upsets the 12-1 favorite. Wow. This is why I say, now in hindsight, Rafael Divino Espinosa from Mexico, yes, that lanky, 6 foot tall, 126-pound fighter. I can't even imagine how he makes that weight, being so skeletal and sinewy. That guy beats one of the best fighters, especially in that division. He almost knocks him out in the 12th round. He knocks him down in one of the first rounds, the third round, if not mistaken. He himself is on shaky ground when he gets dropped by the Cuban standout and almost falls to his knees. Has to climb up on the rope. In fact, that fight could have been stopped right there. But the ref, he saw that for the most part, he had been winning all 5 rounds up until that point. And he decided to give him a chance. A few hard-fought rounds between both them fellas in the scrappy fight go on. And then he starts picking up the pressure again. And in the last round, he almost knocks out Robesi Ramirez. Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe, in my opinion, Espinosa is a greater underdog than Andy Ruiz Jr. Now, here's the funny thing about that, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody thought that there was going to be an immediate rematch clause. That both of these fighters would match up well because it had been a very close fight for the most part. They wanted to have Robeisy Ramirez get the opportunity to claim his belts back. Ramirez said he wanted it. Espinosa said he'd take it. And all of a sudden, that fight's not happening tomorrow. Now, what happened, ladies and gentlemen? What happened for this fight not to materialize? Why was there not a rematch? I don't know. Did Espinosa want a softer touch? Did Ramirez not want that smoke? Well, we're about to find out. Mr. Vince Vargas says Chirino is from Oaxaca. That's crazy. I did not know that there was well, you know what? Actually, I did see an event in Oaxaca held by Matchroom. The very first event in Puebla. Was it Puebla or Oaxaca? I don't know. I can't remember. But it was a very beautiful southern Mexican state. I think it was a very arboreal area, so I think it was maybe forested. So I think Oaxaca does have forest or jungle over there. Maybe I'm mistaken. I've never been over there, Mr. Vargas. If you've been there, let me know where I'm wrong. But I did not know that they had such a big interest in boxing, but I know that it's starting to pick up, especially when you start taking these companies like Matchroom and opening up markets like they have in Australia and Mexico and all these other parts of the world where they're going, Saudi Arabia. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Chirino is a Oaxacan. Hey, I'll tell you one thing. Here in California, we have a large population of Oaxacans, and they're very hardworking. Very hardworking. Tough dudes, too. Don't mess with them. They'll jump you. But what I do want to say about Chirino is that Chirino is in the worst position than Espinosa as an underdog, because if you look at his record, he has less fights than Espinosa. He actually has one loss against what's his name? Was it Francisco Vargas or Mauricio Lara? He has a loss just to a very notable name. Chirino. Let's look him up. Chirino. He has a loss to Mauricio Lara. Oh yeah, to El Bronco. That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. But let's just look at his record, ladies and gentlemen. 0-2, 0-1, 2-4, 6-3, 3-5, 3-4, 1-1, 0-1, 3-1, 11-2, 7-6, 12-9, 9-6. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 fights that you can say that they were absolutely upside down. We go on 6-14. This is about what, 15 fights in. 6-14. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what my son wants. Do I need anything? Where are you going? Nah, I'm okay. I'm okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Let's go on with this record. Chirino. About 50 fights in, he's still fighting a guy, Christian Cortez Gonzalez, with a record of 6 wins, 14 losses, guys. Right? Now, mind you, he did lose to Mauricio Bronco Lara in about his 10th fight. Lara then was 11-2. He retired him, so that meant he quit. So this, again, that this has surprised me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not one of those guys that's too harsh on people, deciding to forfeit a fight because they're being destroyed. I don't expect them to continue just to take on a bunch of punches, completely getting destroyed and hurt when they have no chance at winning. Their spirit is broken just because, hey, it's the brave thing to do. Nah, you know what? Okay, you're getting defeated. I know it's gonna look bad. I know some of us are gonna boo, but you'll get to fight another day. And apparently, he got to fight another day, and since then, he's just been on a winning streak. Now, of course, I'm reading out his record, and it is upside down: 6-2-14. 9-4, he starts picking it up. 8-2, he's still on the winning one. 11-5, winning. 18-5, winning. 11-6, winning. 16-11, yeah, winning. 12-5, and then just 2 fights ago, 5 wins, 6 losses. Again, he goes back to his opportunistic ways of taking on fighters with upside down records, almost as if he's insecure, almost as if his managers, his handlers, don't believe in him. Then he takes on Dennis Contreras, 24-13, and now he's fighting an undefeated fighter who just fought one of the best Olympians in recent years, Rafael El Divino Espinosa. If we go based off that record, ladies and gentlemen, we can say that this guy is definitely at the underdog in tomorrow's fight. But I've been reading a lot of comments, and a lot of people expect this to be a war. And I think a lot of people are only saying this on account that they are Mexican. Think about that. We just read this fighter's record. And if you want me to, we'll read Rafael Espinosa's record. And you'll see that they're very similar. And the way that they were being maneuvered up the ranks by fighting guys with upside down records, and then slowly but surely starting to pick it up until they got the chance, because the record reflected some good wins, and then they maximized that opportunity to become champions. But also because Mexican fighters come to fight. Mexican fighters are underdogs. The two greatest underdogs in recent history has been a Mexican, Rafael Espinosa, and Andy Ruiz Jr., what I suspect to be a Mexican American who identifies as Mexican, but he is definitely of Mexican blood. Can Chirino be the next man to surprise and shock the world of boxing? I would say no, ladies and gentlemen. It's a tall order to ask any man at a weight class around there to take on a guy that's 6 foot something that almost knocked out a 2-time Olympian fighter. Right? But now let's investigate. Why was it that Robeisy Ramirez decided not to take on the rematch? Or maybe it was the other way around. Unboxing Scene, published today, Thursday, June 20th, 2024, and not written by anybody in particular. It just says press release. It says, boxing scene titled Robeisy Ramirez's road back to title starts with Brandon Leon Benitez. Ramirez, a Cuban Olympic gold medalist now based in Las Vegas, lost his featherweight title last December to Rafael Espinosa by majority decision. He is quoted as saying, "Getting my world title back is my mission right now. Throughout my life and boxing career, I have always used setbacks as motivation. This time, it is no different." Benavidez, his opponent, has a record of 21 wins, 2 losses, 9 knockouts. It's a pretty respectable record. He is from Querétaro, Mexico, who has leveled up in the October 2022 with a split decision over Ken Shu. Yep, if you guys don't remember Ken Shu is at, I think he was one of the only few Chinese champions at those lower weight classes. He ended up losing his belt after almost a 2-year hiatus to Joe Cordina in one of the most spectacular knockouts. If I'm not mistaken, that was Ken Shu. And I guess this Benitez, he's the one who had a split decision win over Ken Shu, a former champion. So that's gonna look good on him. But Ramirez says he'll be ready. That he's approaching this training camp with a renewed sense of responsibility, seriousness, and quote unquote great mental focus. He will be the co-feature in an upcoming fight between Teofimo Lopez and Steve Claggett. So he is not fighting on the undercard of tomorrow's fight, which would have been intriguing because we would have gotten to see the same two men that fought themselves, see how they fared in this weekend's fights. Maybe that would justify a rematch. I am so happy, ladies and gentlemen, that this was not an immediate rematch clause, because in life, there will be winners and losers. This is one of the reasons why Vasil High-Tech Lomachenko was my favorite fighter, because he never asked for a rematch. He never made it a condition of him taking on a fight that he would have an immediate rematch clause. If he lost, and that was it. He never thought he would lose. That's how much he believed in himself. You can't blame him for that, right? What are you supposed to do? Not believe in himself? But he was not the kind of business fighter that most everybody has become accustomed to. He is not the kind of fighter that likes to consider rematches as the best thing out there. Why? Because he no longer has to have the angst and anxiety of fighting the fighter that is across from him, because he already has experience. Not like Devin the Dream Haney, who is actually talking about being absent for the sport of boxing and only coming back to rematch Ryan Garcia. Why? Because he wants that loss to be avenged, and I'm sure he wants that big money again. Move on. You lost, even if your record doesn't reflect it. So there you go, guys. I guess it doesn't address the fact on whether Ramirez decided to not fight Espinosa, or maybe Espinosa did not decide to fight him on account that both of those guys took a lot of damage on that fight. Rematch. I'm still gonna investigate a little further. Let's see if I find anything. Nope. For whatever reason or another, ladies and gentlemen. The last report was on December the 29th on Boxing Scene. Rafael Espinosa has no issue with the Robesi Ramirez immediate rematch clause. He gave me the opportunity. He is the one who said that Ramirez gave him an opportunity, so he would like to respond and like. So that makes me think that the reason the rematch clause did not happen is because Ramirez decided to do something otherwise. And that's okay. That's okay. In fact, I'm not going to be too critical about Espinosa taking on what is obviously going to be a soft touch. Why? Because I'm not an unfair boxing fan. If you have a mandatory fight or a very tough fight, I can understand why you would like to take a softer tune-up fight for some quick money. Hold on to your belt a little longer instead of fighting another mandatory or a very tough opponent where you can likely lose your belt. Get some name recognition out of it, knock out that guy, and then take on another fight. So I don't have any kind of qualms in saying that you can have a tough championship fight, a defense with a mandatory, and then the next one could be a voluntary. Mandatory, voluntary. Mandatory, voluntary. I don't think there is any problem with that. right? Of course, we respect the fighters that take on more mandatories than voluntaries, and even more so, we respect the guys who unify more than just take on mandatories. But that's what makes the greatest fighters. This is again the reason why I'm a big Vasil Lomachenko fan. Now let's talk about something else, ladies and gentlemen. Right? There has been news, lots of news. There's going to be a couple of other good events, but Liam Paro just convincingly made Subriel Matias look like a walking punching bag. A powerful knockout artist, a killer in the ring, but still nothing but a fighter that shells up. Now everybody was talking about the shell defense, the stick 'em up, cover up, and then walk forward and walk down your opponent style of Subriel Matias. Right? I get that. But have you ever considered that the reason why fighters assume that kind of defense, especially the way that Matias implemented that defense in this last fight that he lost against the Australian, does that at times make you think that the reason they take that kind of defense is because they're afraid to get hit? Everybody talks about how Subriel will take some to give some. And that's the reason why he just continues walking forward, letting you throw whatever you got until you tire out. But who's to say that the reason he doesn't want to throw in between as much is because he's afraid of getting hit himself? Right? I've always had this suspicion that some of the more good looking fighters, baby faced fighters, they really don't like to get hit. We know famously Oscar de la Hoya, a baby face, uh, a cara, a carita is what they call him, right? In the world of Mexican boxing, he is famous for saying, look, you can hit me in the body, you can hit me all over, you can do whatever you want, but if you hit me in the face, you hit me clean, I get mad and I can't take it, and you're gonna get the worst of it. He was a pretty boy. Money Mayweather himself, he named himself Pretty Boy. He was one of the most defensive fighters out there. Now you're probably saying, come on, Warp Speed, you're overthinking this. Every fighter is supposed to implement proper defense. But I mean so much defense to the point that you become shell shock, that you become inactive and unproductive in your punch outcome, your output. I mean, I don't understand what the strategy was in Matias, but he is asking for a rematch. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Subriel Matias is asking for a rematch. Now, I ask you guys, from what you guys seen, do you believe Subriel Matias deserves a rematch against Liam Paro on account of how he looked? This is what he says just a couple of days ago. Excuses are for losers. I'd beat Liam Paro in a rematch. Now look, I get that you're supposed to believe in yourself. And I get that you would believe that you could win in a rematch. But I did not see anything there in that initial fight that allows me to develop any sense of interest on wanting to watch that fight. Right? I've always suspected that Subriel Matias was very good, very powerful. And I'm just going to go out there and say it. I've suspected that Subriel Matias might soon test 30. right? What are the telltale signs on fighters that test dirty? Their attitude, their demeanor. Subiel Matias, if you've been watching some of his videos, I don't know, on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, he is a very angry, loud-mouthed, foul-mouthed fighter. He calls men Pussy. Okay, he's a much nicer guy, a more respectable man than Ryan Garcia. But nonetheless, he calls men like we just portray a Pussy. The same for Devin Haney. He says he'd beat him because they're Pussys. He would like to fight Ryan Garcia. He would like to fight everybody. Right? This is the way that he was conducting himself. And we know that as soon as he lands one punch, even a punch that doesn't look like it carries any force to it, all of a sudden his opponents are overreacting as if they're seriously hurt. And I have to ask myself, why is that? I mean, he has a style that would promote that kind of power and aggression, right? Just walking you back and then throwing punches. That's one of the best ways to hurt your opponent. Walk him back. They take a step back. Their backwards momentum being accentuated and magnified by your momentum of your punch pushing them back will lead to devastating consequences. I get that. That's how people get knocked out. And of course, he throws some very clean, short uppercuts. And it looks like he employs proper form in doing so. But if you couple that with the way that he acts on the outside of the sport, the way he speaks with that anger, he reminds me a lot of Conor Benn, the guy who also just a few years ago tested positive for another PED, and he was suspended for about a year and 8 months for fighting in the UK. I don't even think he's fought in the UK since. He's fought in a couple times here in the US. But if you'd been following Conor Benn and his YouTube videos and interviews, he was always angry. He seemed like he always had a bone to pick. He was very arrogant and feisty. And of course, he was very powerful in the ring. It wouldn't surprise me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not one to just cast aspersions of anybody. But would you guys have ever thought that Ryan Garcia was on some kind of performance enhancement drug? No. But then all of a sudden, he changes his demeanor. He's very arrogant. He's very feisty. He's very crass spoken. And all of a sudden, he's very aggressive and powerful. Well, he's always been. But so has Ryan Matias. All of them have in common the fact that they seem to act like pricks, talk like pricks, want to fight everybody, talk bad about anybody, and they clearly destroy their opponents. You know, that's just my opinion. But Ryan Matias does believe in himself. I don't blame him. If he thinks that he can beat Liam Paro in a rematch, well, guess what? I'm not one of those guys that just says that he was a bum. No, I was there when he beat Maxim Dadashev. I was there when he was being hurt by Maxim Dadashev, but he seemed to take all of his punches. I remember when Maxim Dadashev started to slowly collapse and crumble. I remember when he went slightly limp at the corner when they stopped the fight. I remember when Maxim Dadashev was being carried on each side by one of his cornermen, and he threw up right before the camera transitioned. To the commenters, I remember the day when my mother and I were watching the fight. And I remember I said, Ma, I think we just seen a man get killed in the ring. I've been watching Subriel Matias for a few fights. I remember seeing him more so a long time ago, more so than now. He's always been powerful and devastating, but he was never really a jerk. Or maybe he was always a jerk, and we just never got to see him because we were seeing him in the up and up before they get the notoriety, before they get the interview opportunities and so forth. But again, this is just a speculation, ladies and gentlemen. It wouldn't surprise me if eventually it turns out that Subriel Matthias has been enhancing somehow. Maybe it's just the nice high elevation climate of Mexico, the country of which in which he trains. Maybe it's something as simple as that. But I won't cast dispersions. But who knows? Anyways, I ask you, do you think Subriel Matias deserves a rematch? That's the question. Not can he win a rematch. I give every fighter a chance. Does he deserve a rematch? I found another very interesting thing right here. And I'm not too sure if you guys have been following these news, right? But of course, just a couple, just last weekend, in fact, we were privy to David Mexican Monster and his performance at light heavyweight 175. Now, if you guys want to give me your opinions of what you guys thought about that, I'm all for it. I want to pick your brains. I want to just pick your curiosity. And I want you to see what it is that you guys think about the way that David Benavidez looked. Don't, you know, I didn't even have time to analyze what it all meant. I know that I was impressed during the fight on how he fared against a guy that had made Adonis Stevenson an invalid, a handicapped individual in a wheelchair, eating his nutrients through a straw or a gastronasal tube. But I wasn't neither too impressed nor or let down by it all. I think he fought a big back. I think Dmitry Vosdik looked huge in comparison to David, right? So that's how you know that David Benavidez was never a height bully at 168. He was on 2 fights a weight bully. He used his weight advantages to blow through the weight. He lost the belt on one of those opportunities, and the other one on drugs. But nonetheless, you know, for what everybody was saying, oh, at 168, he's so big and he's tall and he's a weight bully, and all of a sudden he goes up 7 pounds and he looks so small. Make it make sense. How does a guy become a small man of the next weight division, but he's a height and weight bully, the one below? Come on. Ridiculous, right? David Benavidez was not a height bully. A weight bully he was, but otherwise he made weight at 168 and made it fair and square when it mattered against the most recent wins in order to get the cash cow, the golden goose, and Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan. But all of a sudden, there we go. David Benavidez. You tell me what you guys think about it. Because I was reading something, related to that, but not necessarily about David Benavidez. I was reading a report by, again, boxing scene. Man, boxing scene is very productive with their opinions. But what I really dislike is the fact that they don't value their opinions or respect their opinions enough that they actually put their names to it. This one is just written by the boxing scene staff. What do you mean the boxing scene staff? Did you guys like get all together, 4 or 5 guys, and everybody just shared the same pencil? One guy used one word, and then you guys gave turns at the pen to see who filled in the next word. Like, what were you guys playing, a hangman or something with words? It's crazy. Somebody must have wrote this report, and maybe there's an editor, or maybe somebody said, oh, you know what, let me research. So apparently these guys are very lazy, or there's some kind of a union of writers where one guy writes maybe a paragraph, the next guy, so they could all take credit together or something. I don't know, some kind of utopian writing offices over there at the boxing scene. But nonetheless, this is a report that was written in the boxing scene by all of the writers at the boxing scene, and it is about Dmitry Bivol and his newfound respect for David Benavidez. Why? Why does he respect David Benavidez? Because David Benavidez is wanting to face the best. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we read this report, I just want you to comment if you're still there. I want you to comment and just tell me, what do you think Dmitry Bivos' angle is going to be when he says that he respects David Benavidez for wanting to, quote unquote, face the best? Do you actually think he respects David Benavidez for going up in weight? Is he trying to insinuate that Dmitry Bostic is one of the best? That's why David Benavidez fought him? Or is he trying to say that in order to get to the best, which he's obviously including himself because he's a champ, that you would have to fight fighters like Bostic, a guy who is barely coming back from a 2-year layoff, having been knocked out, if I'm not mistaken, stopped by Artur Beterbiev, and then taking on 3 consecutive soft touches or tune-up fights after 2 years. And I don't think that's unfair. I think that's actually fair. If you've been out of the sport, you want to start, getting back into the rhythm of things, getting back into the timing of things. Yeah, take on some softer touches. He's done that for three fights last year, so he's been very productive. He's been training with Canelo. He's in the Canelo camp. But was Vostik the path towards the B2B Vol, or, God forbid, Artur Beterbiev? Why do you think Dmitry Bivol is praising David Benavidez? Well, let's find out. Light heavyweight title holder Dmitry Bivol recently reflected on his past sparring sessions with David Benavidez ahead of his October unification fight with Artur Beterbiev. So again, I guess Dmitry Bivol has had sparring sessions with David Benavidez, and he's been reflecting on that because in October he's going to be fighting Artur Beterbiev. Benavidez defeated Alexander Vostik on Saturday in the co-main event to Gervonta Davis, Frank Martin, undercard in Las Vegas, and he stated, where Benavidez stated afterwards, that his future lies at super middleweight. So I'm not too sure if you, ladies and gentlemen, have been following it, right? But when David Benavidez decided to experiment and venture upwards of 168 to fight Dmitry Vostik, it was just an experiment. He was just testing himself to determine whether or not he is a pound-for-pound fighter, and the definition of what a pound-for-pound fighter is, right? A pound for pound fighter is obviously a person who is competitive in multiple weight divisions. And the best way to prove yourself that you are a pound for pound fighter is not only to win in various weight divisions, but to beat a champion. Now, baby steps, guys, baby steps. David Benavides couldn't just rush over there and just say, "Hey," snap his fingers, "Give me Dimitri Bivol. Hey, give me Artur Beterbiev." No, he couldn't do that. He has to test himself first. And I think Boston was a good test. But apparently, after that performance, David himself, he has stated that he was going to give himself a chance, and then after the fight, it would be determined whether or not he would stay at 175 or come back down to 168. So apparently, Benavides stated afterwards that his future still lies at super middleweight, 168. The monster said he wanted to be that dominant fighter who dominates both weight divisions, super middleweight and light heavyweight, but apparently he has reconsidered and now he just wants to dominate at 168. Nonetheless, after the fight in the press conference, he stated that he felt he had earned the right to face the winner of the Beterbiev Bivol bout for the undisputed light heavyweight title. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just read the contradictions, right? And maybe it's not so much a contradiction. Maybe this is what he stated right after the fight, and maybe afterwards he had a few days to consider. Then is when he decided to change his opinion. But after the fight, he said that he thought he had done everything to face the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol. Ladies and gentlemen, David Benavides doesn't even hold the belt at 168. Typically, only for the WBA and the WBC, for sure, can you go up from one weight class to the next if you're a champion at a weight class and then you decide to go up or down, and then they'll give you that two rights to fight another champion from those sanctioning organizations. But guess what? David has no belts because Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan Canelo holds all four belts at 168. So right then there, David Benavides is asking the sanctioning bodies to allow him to cut in the line of all of these other fighters, climb up the ranks because he beat what? A almost 2 year removed Dmitry Vostik, who's never held the belt. Well, wait, maybe he did hold the belt after he beat Don Stevenson's. But because he beat that guy, now? Really? Yeah, and you think your performance was that good, David? You think you really did that good? Did you stop the guy? I think in fact, Vostik looked rather unscathed. His flesh looked fresh and clean. On the other hand, David Benavides' face looked like he had taken some wear and tear. But that's what he said after the fight. Afterwards, he says that his future lies in trying to dominate both divisions, but he's going to be coming down to 168. Okay, good stuff. It seems like one took place first, and then the second thing, I think he realizes that no, he does not deserve Beterbiev Bivol winner for an undisputed light heavyweight title shot on account that he couldn't even stop Dmitry Vostik, who is nearly 40 years of age. So I think he started to realize. Nonetheless, this is what people stated. I respect him as a fighter. He's a really good fighter in what he's saying. You know, because you know how he does. He calls Canela or whatever. He says people are Canela. He says that he wants to fight me in Beterbiev. I mean, he's a great fighter. He's confident and wants to achieve more and more. It's good, he says of his opponent. I remember we had a couple of sparring sessions. I remember some good moments from my side, some good moments from his side. But it's sparring. Yes. You do some things which your coach told you. You should do this and that. One round you couldn't do it. Another round you tried to do this. And the third round you do it once only. And you feel like you won the sparring because you did what your coach asked you. So he understands that it's sparring, right? You do some things your coach tells you. You do this, the next round you can't do it. You do another thing. It's practice, is what he's saying. So he's admitting that David Benavidez had some good moments fighting him and sparring. And he did have some good moments against David. Nonetheless, he's just saying he appreciates and respects David Benavidez for wanting to fight the best. And by that, he's just trying to say that he's calling him out for a title shot and Beterbiev. But I really do think it's partially a diss at Canelo. We all know that there was talk about an immediate rematch clause between Dimitri Bivol and Canela, like he likes to say Canela, after Canelo lost at 175, trying to test himself at 175, taking on Dimitri Bivol. Dimitri Bivol couldn't hurt Canelo. Canelo couldn't hurt the much bigger man. I'm actually quite disappointed in Dimitri Bivol over Canelo, because although Canelo was the undisputed champion at 168, guess what? He started at 147. This is his fourth or fifth weight division. Dimitri Bivol has been in the same weight division and for years has never hurt or knocked out anybody. In 6 years, he hasn't had a knockout win. In fact, his last fight on that 5v5 between Queensbury Promotions and Matchroom, he didn't knock out his opponent. He just hurt him, and then the opponent was stopped on account of the third man in the ring having seen too much. But that's not a knockout, ladies and gentlemen. That's not a knockout. Knockout to me is when there's a guy standing, you pop him, you drop him to the floor. He can't get up, you put him to sleep. That's a knockout. This is a technical knockout, right? Technically, somebody thought that he was hurt enough to stop a fight, but Dimitri Bivol couldn't hurt a fighter that climbed up 5 weight divisions, and Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan, he couldn't do that to him. Wow. And they were going to rematch. When Canelo said, I only rematch you. Oh, no. He said, I want you to rematch you at 168. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Dimitri Bivol was only willing to climb down, not even up. Listen to this. Dimitri Bivol was willing to climb down weight divisions to take on a much smaller man, physically and even professionally, so that he could become the fastest route at undisputed in boxing's history, besides Winky Wright. Or what was his name? The guy who beat Bernard Hopkins. Maybe it was Winky Wright. Basically, he wanted to rematch the guy he had already beaten at that guy's weight division, even though he himself had never fought in that weight class. He had never wanted to test himself at any other weight class besides his comfortable 175. He never wanted to go up to cruiserweight. He never wanted to go to any of these other weight divisions. 200 heavyweight. He didn't want to do that, but he was sure willing to come back down to beat the guy that he had already beat, to become the fastest undisputed fighter. where Canelo attained all 4 belts. He just wanted to go over there and just rematch the same guy that he had already beat. Not even destructively either, just like outpointed the guy, right? Outpointed the much smaller man. Man, you start thinking that this guy is a guy some people have called the generational fighter. A guy who's moving backwards. A guy who's coming down in weight to fight smaller man for all of their belts after he already beat him. Man, when you think about it like that, Dmitry Bivol, he's a special fighter. He sure likes to win. Sure likes to win. I mean, look at his record. Sure likes to win, right? But I really thought that he was trying to diss Canelo because he respects David Benavidez wanting to face the best, which by then he's also implying that David Benavidez wanted to fight Canelo, implying that Canelo is the best. But that also means that Dmitry Bivol does not respect Canelo because Canelo does not want to face the best. You see how that philosophy works, that twisted logic works? He's a genius. Dmitry Bivol is a genius with words. He's praising a fighter in David Benavidez and discrediting the fighter that he already beat. Man, he's a genius. There was another very interesting news of the day, and we'll wrap it up soon enough. But I'm not too sure if you guys know this. William Cepeda, the lightweight, who throws around nearly he throws almost nearly 1,000 punches per fight. William Cepeda. That guy right there, he has just made it where he is #1 fighter for all the sanctioning bodies. The WBA, the WBC, the WBO, the IBF. He made Maxi Hughes retire in the corner. I believe Maxi Hughes may have officially retired. Mercito Gesta, he knocked him out. Mercito Gesta, the record of 34-3. Maxi Hughes was who should have been a fighter after he should have gotten the nod against Australia's Georgie Cambosas. Jaime Arboleda, 12-2. Joseph Diaz, 33-2. Joseph Diaz being a former three-time division champion. He beat him convincingly. He beat one of the Alvarado brothers, Rene Alvarado, the Nicaraguan. That was a fun fight. 32 wins, 11 losses, Rene Alvarado. He's beaten a couple of undefeated fighters. Hector Tanahara, he beat that guy. But otherwise, he's made it where he can fight Vasily Lomachenko, Tank Davis, Shakur Stevens, and the Ukrainian Denis Baranchyk. Now, here's the thing. Let's just start off, right? Let's just admit that Denis Baranchyk is the worst champion at 135. He put on one of the worst fights against one of the greatest champions in recent history, the Mexican Emmanuel Navarrete. About a month ago, those guys met in the ring. Those guys couldn't couple up. They weren't good dancing partners. Looked like both of them had left feet. They were throwing punches, mixing each other, getting off foot, throwing punches, blocking every single thing between each other. But one guy just looked worse than the next guy. El Vaquero Navarrete tried to test himself at 135 in order to sell his booty, in my opinion, to Shakur Stevens. He fought Denis Baranchyk in a weekend where it seemed every fight that weekend included a Ukrainian fighter. And the Ukrainian fighter took the belt for the top rank fighter, even though Emmanuel Navarrete was the top rank title holder, or who they wanted to be the top rank title holder, so that they could make a possible Shakur Stevens fight with him. It didn't happen because they gave it to who they thought was the worst fighter on that night, Denis Baranchyk. But man, oh man, ladies and gentlemen, is Denis Baranchyk a horrible fighter? In fact, I'll tell you the honest truth. I think Emmanuel Vaquero Navarrete looked like one of the worst fighters ever. We all knew his style was unorthodox. We all knew his style, for the most part, was untraditional, and some might even say sloppy. But man, was it so effective. Up until he decided to blow up to 180 on his off time, come back down to 135, and I don't use that word, but I'll spell it out. I never call a fighter this, but he looked like a BUM or a tomato can. We have a commenter, Mr. Or Mrs. I'm not too sure. Blitz Tactique. Good even fall to you. And in fact, good even fall to one and all. Hey, Devin Haney is still undefeated. I'm so happy right now. LOL. The European colonizers must be so enraged right now. Ha 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 in all caps. Hashtag Team Haney. 31 and all. Ah, the dirty pink European colonizer. Dirty pink European colonizer. Devin Haney is still undefeated. I'm so happy right now. The European colonizers must be so enraged right now. The European colonizers must be so enraged right now because Devin Haney is still undefeated. So, European colonizers, I can't think of which ones, Blitz Tactique, wanted Devin Haney to beat a defeated fighter. If there's any European colonizer guys or just regular European conquerors, or maybe just European losers from wars, please let me know what you guys think about Devin Haney being undefeated officially on this record, one that they've whitewashed that fight. In fact, let me address that part right there, Blitz Tactique. I am in agreement that, and I think actually Ryan Garcia is also, that the fight should have been a no decision, right? Ryan Garcia definitely beat that man, and nobody would take that away from him. But he was discovered to have taken performance enhancement products. He's accepting the punishment that comes with it, including the financial one of paying 1.3 or so million dollars back to Golden Boy. Not too sure why. He is also willing to take that 1-year suspension from the date which commences on the date of that fight. I disagree. I would have rather preferred that the 1-year suspension period started as of today, when the punishment was dished out and agreed upon. But if he's okay with including part of that settlement and punishment to make it so that Devin Haney's record is whitewashed, hey, who am I to complain? If Ryan accepts it and he's okay with it, Why am I gonna defend the guy? He's the one who made his deal. He's the one who said, "Yeah, suspend me." He's the one who said, "Yeah, let's allow Devin Haney to have an unblemished record." I'm not gonna defend that guy. Yeah, but again, going back to what we were saying, right? El Camarón Cepeda, William El Camarón Cepeda has made it to #1, and this is what I would do if I was Golden Boy, right? His promoter. What I would do is I would try and work with Bob, Mr. Bob Arum, and say, you know what, Bob, let's build up this fighter. This guy's very action packed. We can both make big money now that you have Vasily Lomachenko, you have Denis Baranchyk. Wait, is even Vasily Lomachenko 135? Man, it's the Vasily. Yeah. I don't even know if he's the champion. Is he? I hope he is. He's my favorite fighter. Shakur Stevens holds 1 belt. Gervonta Davis, yep. Vasily Lomachenko. And Denis Baranchyk. Denis Baranchyk has a co-promotion with Bob Arum. Vasily Lomachenko, Bob Arum. Shakur Stevens, for all we know, there's going to be an opportunity to re-sign with Bob Arum, or he's going to be offered something by Matchroom, at least according to Mr. Eddie Hearn, who has demonstrated some interest. But what I'm saying is this: if I was Golden Boy, I would say, look, Bob, now that we're working together and we're actually talking to Turkey Al Sheikh about making a possible 5v5 between Golden Boy and Top Rank, why don't we start off with trying to build up either Denis Baranchyk or William Cepeda into a big fight, into a big fighters in and of themselves. Let's put these both together for Denis Barancyk's newly attained championship belt and see who comes out on top of that. I believe William El Camarón Cepeda will come out on top, and then he could be like, if you sign Shakur Stevens, we'll keep him at the end because he's a very boring fighter. Let's just maximize the high activity, high output of William Cepeda and put him against my favorite fighter, Vasily Lomachenko. That's going to be a come forward, action-packed, explosive, destructive, absolutely exciting, not one dull moment kind of a fight. And I don't even know who wins right now. But let's just say, that William El Camarón Cepeda wins and beats, maybe even retires Vasily Lomachenko. If Shakur Stevens has behaved well and he decides to take a pay cut and he resigns with Bob Arum, then they could go at it for what by then can be a possible 3rd belt for William Cepeda. And I think William Cepeda has the base style for a pure boxer like Shakur Stevens to beat him. At least it's going to be a much better fight than, let's say, Edwin de los Santos, who is waiting on Shakur Stevens to throw punches so he can counterpunch. No, William Cepeda is going to bring it to you, and he's going to throw 1,000 punches in hopes that he lands against the backward fighting, fleet of foot Shakur Stevens. One of the most unexciting, boring fighters. And then, of course, we would have a 4th fight. Or maybe Shakur Stevens wins that one, and he holds 3 belts to one of Tank Davis's. Because I leave Tank Davis at the end, ladies and gentlemen, because at that weight division he is the cash cow. He, especially now, after he has a new resurgence and his credibility, he will definitely hold up until some of these guys eliminate themselves instead of being the guy who just goes over there and just beats them all. One of those fighters would make it more exciting. Now we know that Tank Davis has issues with come forward pressure fighting Mexicans. He had it against Pitbull Cruz. Isaac Pitbull Cruz. Now, the differences between Pitbull Cruz and El Camarón Cepeda is that if we look at the type of fighters that Pitbull Cruz and Camarón Cepeda has, I would say that Camarón Cepeda's record is better than Pitbull Cruz's. On account of having Jojo Diaz and Maxie Hughes, those are former champion. In the case of Jojo Diaz, former 3-division title holder. El Camarón Cepeda is much more feisty, throws more punches than even Isaac Cruz. He has, I think, a greater variety of punch. Maybe not as explosive, but definitely explosive enough. And he's a southpaw. Yeah. All the advantages that Shakur Stevens would enjoy, he would no longer have when he faces El Camarón Cepeda, and I think that same would apply for Gervonta Tank Davis. Now, I hope that the PBC and Gervonta Tank Davis's handlers unleash him and allow him to go out there and be sick to all of these fighters. Sick 'em, boys. Sick 'em. Because Tank Davis, I know he's fighting the lower level of competition than some of these other guys. But man, oh man, does he look incredible. And he's a cash cow. So he could mandate when those fights happen, if he even wants them to happen. Because let's admit, ladies and gentlemen, unification fights are not necessary. If a fighter wants to just travel and stick to one sanctioning body, he can do so for the rest of his career. In fact, Dimitri Bivol has been doing that for all of his career. Some fighters, that's all they do. That's okay. But if he wants to have a little fun, he can go out there and just take on some of these fighters. But William Cepeda has just made it so that he is number one for every weight, for every champion at 130, 135. You tell me who you guys think wins those fights. You guys have Dennis Baranchyk over William Cepeda. Do you guys like William Cepeda's odds against Shakur Stevens? Against Vasily Lomachenko, Tank Davis? Who do you guys have for those wins? You guys are pretty silent today. You guys don't say nothing. I'm about to wrap this baby up right here. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, before I start playing my my goodbye outro. It's been a very eventful, interesting week. This one has. And like always, I say that I am a psychonaut that asks questions. It does not propose answers. Why? Because I want to hear from you. I myself don't even know a lot of things. Remember, this is the person that's intoxicated himself and his body, his brain, with drugs of all types. Comes from people that have passed away and transcended because of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And I'm following those same steps. This is the reason why I ask questions of you, because I don't trust my memory banks. I need your help. But apparently, you guys don't want to help me. I'll leave it for whoever dares to provide their opinion while the music is playing on the outro to let me know who wins between William Camarón Cepeda and Lomachenko, Stevenson, Davis, Baranchik, I want you to let me know, is Dmitry Bivol capping when he says he respects Dave Benavides, or is he trying to disrespect Canela? Who will win tomorrow's fight? Rafael El Divino Espinosa or Sergio Chirino? Who knows, right? And do you think Subriel Matthias could be victorious against one of the greatest underdog stories besides the two Mexicans that I told you about, El Divino Espinosa and Andy Ruiz Jr. in the past 2 decades, and Liam Paro? Can he beat Liam Paro in the rematch, or has Liam Paro learned much more than Matthias about what he can do against the boogeyman? Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. It's been a little while since I hopped on the live. I really wanted your participation, but it seems you guys are busy or quiet or working or bored or don't have any opinions or being respectful enough to just play me in the background while watching your favorite TV show. Hey, I appreciate every single one of you nonetheless. I just wish that you guys would have provided some opinions because I actually really do care about my listeners. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you are well of health and sane of mind. And if you aren't, well, strengthen your body by physical activity. Strengthen your mind by cerebral stimulation. Read a book. See the world. Ask a question. Please, in this world, in this life, engage.